Hello everyone, welcome to this exciting session brought to you by Packt Publishing. Today we are diving into the world of game development, one of the fastest growing and most dynamic industries out there. Our focus today is Godot Game Engine, a tool that's empowering developers worldwide to create amazing games with ease and efficiency. And for our dear viewers, if you ever face messy code, scalability challenges, and wonder how to structure your game system for long-term success, I guess you are in the right place.
Absolutely, Neha. Game development isn't about just creativity, it's about solving real technical challenges. It's about writing code that not only works but also scales and adapts to your evolving ideas. That's why we are so excited about today's session. We brought in a guest who isn't just an expert in Godot, but someone who lives and breathes these challenges, and more importantly, knows how to tackle them. I'm Namita Valgekar, Growth Lead at Packt Publishing.
I'm Neha. I'm relationship lead at Bag for Game Development Domain. Our guest today is someone who needs no introduction to many of you. We are very glad to welcome Henrique Campos, better known as Ludonaut. He is an indie game developer, designer, educator, and consultant. Henrique has been making waves in game industry for years with contributions ranging from teaching at universities, then creating game development resources on YouTube. He's also been a great part of a GD's Quest team and has guided countless developers with his expertise.
Yes, and Henrique is also the author of two amazing books: The Essential Guide to Creating Multiplayer Games with Godot 4, and most recent title, Game Development Patterns with Godot 4. Today, we are here to talk about the new book, Game Development Patterns. Henrique, thank you so much for joining us with us today. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, hello, the pleasure is completely mine. I like to thank you so much for this interview. I'm doing fine besides my cold. I'm a bit cold, but yeah, will go well.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We are so excited to dive into our journey, your books, and your thoughts on game development with Godot. Let's jump right to it, Henrique. To start, can you tell us how did you begin your journey with game development and what made you choose Godot as your primary tool?
Okay, so my game development journey is a bit long because I always had a passion for game development. I remember the day that I figured out that I wanted to do that. My dad made a game for my sister. I was about like 5 years old. And I was like, can we make games with a personal computer? How does that work? And then after that, I started researching how I could make games. So I started working with RPG Maker, Game Maker afterwards, and then Unity. And then I had some issues with Unity that I figured out that they were easily fixed by Godot engine back in 2015. And then I decided, hey, I think that this is a better tool for me. At least it solves all my problems. So it fits my demands. So I'm going to start using it for my work. And after that, after 2015, when I was in the university teaching on the university, I realized, yeah, I think that I will use this tool for my personal projects.
Wow, that's simply incredible, and your journey is truly inspiring, Henrique. Let's dive into your latest work, Godot Game Development Patterns with Godot 4. What motivated you to create this book, and how do you see it empowering game developers?
Okay, so this is a very interesting topic. I love patterns. I'm one of these persons that try to figure out what's the underlying pattern of many stuff. I just had a hit post on X where I talk about, hey, games are just a system of incentives. And people are like, how what do you mean? So when I started looking for development patterns, we have like game design patterns and game development patterns. I realized that there are many people that already solve the issues that we are going through in any game development problem. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. These problems are already solved. And I was like, hey, this can 10x my productivity because I can not only solve the issues that people already solved, but I can also scale from that on many projects and reuse most of my code base. So I don't have to, if I restart a project, I don't have to restart from zero. I already have a code base, a reliable code base that has solutions that were tested by thousands, millions of other developers, and I don't have to be let let let's say I don't have to be insecure about my own solutions because these people already made them. And I started researching these development patterns, and I created a YouTube series about that. And this was when I realized, hey, if there is a demand, it was one of my most successful YouTube series. And I say, hey, if there is demand for videos about that, there's certainly a demand for a book as well about game development patterns.
Brilliant. That's really insightful. You spoke about code bases, and I'm sure many other developers also struggle with scaling their projects or managing even the messy code bases that are there out there. Now, coming on to the next question, what strategies or patterns do you recommend for creating a scalable architecture in Godot?
Okay, so Godot Engine already comes out of the box with some patterns, so they implemented them on the editor. So, for instance, we have the observer pattern as the signal system. We have the very structure of Godot Engine is a pattern as well. It's known as composition tree. So you compose a tree of processment with components, which in Godot Engine we call nodes. So when you scale forward, when you move forward in your production, you start to have more specific problems. And one of them is, especially in games, when you have many interactions and the player have to behave, the player avatar at least has to behave in many different forms. You need to create many conditional statements, right? But the strategy pattern to me is the most amazing one. Is one of the most simple patterns that we find, but it's the most powerful one because instead of like having if statement, conditional statements, you just say, hey, what's the strategy that I should use to interact with this object? And the very object itself will provide the strategy to the user object. So this is the most amazing one to me. It cuts out many problems because when you think about it, most of the issues that we have in especially interactive experiences like games is they're overlapping between some conditionals. So we should interact with an enemy, but we should pick up an item that dropped from this enemy. Which one should this player do when they press the, let's say, the action button? And the strategy pattern will say, hey, you don't have to care about it. Just say execute this strategy, and whatever is within your reach will tell if this is an enemy or if this is a loot that you should pick. So the strategy pattern is definitely the best for me.
Wow, that's such a great approach. Enrique, thank you so much for highlighting that. It's clear that you and this book both will be a valuable resources for those who want to master both technical aspect and the best practices in game development.
Yeah, so one of the standout philosophies in your book is the concept of favoring composition or inheritance. So, could you walk us through how this approach not only addresses practical challenges like code flexibility, scalability, but also empowers developer to create most robust and adaptable game system, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. So the idea of composition over inheritance is a very known, um, uh, is a very understandable thing among the most professional developers because the idea is that inheritance causes a lot of issues, mainly because in development in general, we have what we call coupling, which is when you make an object be a dependence of another object. And inheritance is is the hardest way of coupling because this object cannot exist without the object that the class that it inherits from. And by understanding that inheritance is just a tool to reuse code from, let's say, the inherited class, we should pay attention to when should we do that, because there are two main conditions that should be together when you decide to inherit a class. You should reuse its code and override it. So the idea is that, okay, if you want to just reuse the code, you should use a component because otherwise you will be creating a hard coupling between this class, and it will be harder to reuse it on other projects because it is most likely that you are specializing this class for a context of a specific project, and if you take this context and apply it into another project, this won't work. But if you create a component and just reuse and just combine these components together to achieve the goal of your project, you will be able to use them across other projects as well. And inheritance breaks this because it basically specializes the class to the context of a single project, making it harder to reuse later. And this is the thing. You should use components instead of inheritance, because when you combine many components, you can achieve a better and reusable and more flexible code instead of having a monolithic hierarchy of classes.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for highlighting the difference between components and as well as inheritance. And that sounds like a game changer. Moving on to the next question. Can you share real world examples where a game design pattern helped you solve a critical problem in game development?
Yeah, definitely. So, for instance, in Godot engine, we have what we call auto loads, which is basically an implementation of the singleton pattern. The singleton pattern will tell you that you can create an object and make a reference for it globally, and everyone that references this object will always reference the same instance of this object. By doing that, you can communicate an object with the other, passing data to the single object that they all have in common that they can use to pass data around. So, for instance, this is useful for making achievement systems, score systems, and anything that you need to pass around globally. So you can have like player stats that are available for other systems in the game, and especially on Godot engine. But I think that this is also true for other engines. When you have the change between, let's say, one scene to another, the engine will clean up everything on the process tree. But if you put a singleton, the singleton will bypass this process and will maintain this data. So, for instance, let's say that on the previous level, the player had a given amount of health, and you store it in a singleton. Without storing it on a singleton, you will lose this data. But if you store it on a singleton, it will bypass the cleanup of the process tree and maintain this data available for for the objects of the next scene. So this allows you to maintain some progress on the player, maintain the score, maintain other data that are relevant for the gameplay.
That sounds simply great. Such a practical and insightful example, Henrique. Thank you so much. It's inspiring to see how design patterns can transform complex challenges into manageable solutions. So, speaking of the challenges, like solo developers and small teams often face unique hurdles due to limited resources. So, the next question is, how does your book equip them to overcome these obstacles and build efficient, scalable games with Godot?
Okay, so one of the main strategies that small teams especially overcome have to apply when they are getting into the industry is that they should create many games, because when you are small you should invest more into numbers than on quality usually. So when you have a scalable code base that you can reuse across projects, you can basically create templates of projects that you can reskin and create many other types of games based on the same code that you created, especially if you apply these design patterns, because as I said, many of the problems that you are going through in most of the projects that you are going to create when you are making games will be already solved by this code base, and you can even customize it to apply specifically to your issues. So when you do that, when you apply these patterns into your code base, you can create a reliable code base that you can reuse across projects and 10x, 100x your production time, because at this time of your journey into the industry, you should release a lot of projects. Afterwards, when you get into a point where you already have um, a name, a fan base, and you can invest more into customized solutions, you can rely a bit more into specific codes that are more specific to a given project, but on the beginning you should create a lot of games, and using game design patterns will help you create these solutions and speed up the process of creating, designing, and releasing a game.
Thank you so much for highlighting that and the use cases of using patterns into code bases. So that's really a handy tool. And also highlighting that initially, when someone is creating games, someone has just started to develop games, the number is playing a bigger role than quality for that matter. Uh, so, for a developer who's transitioning to Godot, what are some of the must know tips or best practices to avoid any common pitfalls that are there?
Oh, specifically on Godot engine. So yeah, one of the most common pitfalls that at least I see on my clients that transition from like Unity to Godot engine, is the idea of having a single node, a single object that has a lot of responsibilities, like a huge code that the object has. I even mentioned that on the book, the Vernon manager class, so the game manager that has a lot of responsibilities. And in Godot engine, Godot favors small code, specialized code, and combine this code for small objects that will work together to achieve a given goal. So I think that this is my most insightful advice. Try to break down responsibilities into smaller problems, like smaller solutions that you can combine together to achieve the goal that you need. Especially in Godot Engine, since each node only accepts one single script, will kind of like force you into that mindset. While with Unity, for instance, you can add a lot of components to a single object, and this can like break can scale up to something that you can manage later on.
Yeah, those are some fantastic tips, Henrique. So it really highlights the importance of leveraging the unique strength of Godot. Speaking of its strength, Godot's rapid rise in popularity has been nothing short of remarkable. In your opinion, what key factors are fueling its success, and how can developers harness this momentum to, further innovate and grow?
Yeah, so Godot Engine has very solid foundations. So the engine itself is open source, so anyone that finds a problem can contribute and fix the problem. This is something that most tools don't have. So let's say the thing that made me switch to Godot was exactly that. I knew how to fix an issue on Unity, but I couldn't work with the code base. So in Godot Engine, I people can fix that, and this will help create a more solid and robust tool. And by doing that, people also feel part of the project because they are also contributing to the development of the tool, and they engage more into using the tool and improving the tool. So this is kind of like a positive feedback loop where the users use the tool, they improve the tool, and other users get a more robust tool that they also can figure out one issue, a small issue that they can also fix or contribute. So not only to the features of the engine, but also to the documentation, to any part of the project that will help other developers uh, reach the goal that they need with the tool. So I think that this is how Godot Engine scale up so fast because besides it started as a in-house engine, it scaled up so fast, especially after Godot 3, that many studios started to invest into improving the tool themselves and switch. For instance, we had the studio behind, oh, I forget the name of the game, but it's a roguelike game, very famous roguelike game. I forgot about it, but they switched to Godot Engine, and many people was like, oh, how this studio is using this tool? So this tool has something interesting about it. So Slay the Spire, this is the game. Slay the Spire 2 is using Godot Engine on the development. So this creates a lot of this highlights the potential of the engine for other people as well. So if this game that is laid Aspire is being made on this tool, I can make my game on this tool as well, and this starts to open the eyes of many developers. So I think that this is the secret behind Godot Engine, especially the open source aspect of the tool, because for instance this tool you can invest into paying someone to implement a feature that they need, and this will be publicly available to everyone else after that.
Yeah, this is simply inspiring. I'm sure readers are gonna finding it very interesting to know. Your passion for game development and overall spirit of learning is truly motivating, Henrique. Thank you so much. And yeah, so before we wrap up, I would love to hear your perspective as an advocate for open source innovation. What exciting trends or transformative changes do you see shaping the future of game engines like Godot? And how can developers best prepare to embrace these opportunities?
Okay, so yeah, an advocate of open source tools. And I see that when we have this code available and everyone can contribute to them, for instance, we have Blender, right? Blender is a huge tool. They have been through some troubles, some financial troubles lately, but usually the foundation is going through these financial troubles, but the tool itself is getting more robust because many studios are using that and they improve it, they release it. So for instance, on the movie making industry, most of the tools that they use are open source because they allow other studios to use, every studio contribute, the tool gets better. And this is how I see things going, this is how I see things moving in the future. So you have one tool that is available for everyone to work with, to distribute, to use it, and people will improve it and make them improvements available for everyone, and everyone will get a better tool, a better tool as more games get released. So is, as I said, is a positive feedback loop. The more games are made with this tool, the more issues, the more features it gets, the better the tool becomes, then the more games the industry can make with it. So this is how I see things. I really believe in the potential of source tools in that, in this regard, of getting exponentially better. Is different from closed source tools where a single team has to maintain it, and if the company is not getting enough profit from the operation, so we saw massive layoffs of like Unity or other companies lately. They have to fire these people, and the the operations get slower because there are less people working on this tool. It's the opposite of, for instance, Godot engine, that we saw that, for instance, it started, I think, on Godot 3 with 1,000 contributors, and on Godot 4 we have like 3,000 contributors on the engine. So it's getting ever greater. So I think that the open source movement is getting traction lately.
Definitely. These are some of the great points. Thank you so much for highlighting them. It's an opportunity for all via these open source resources like Godot for that matter. Sounds like an exciting future ahead for Godot and open source game development. Thank you so much, Henrique, once again for sharing your knowledge with us and as well as your experience. It's been truly inspiring to hear your insights into Godot and game development. And to all our viewers, thank you for joining us. If you found today's session valuable, make sure to connect with Henrique online. Follow him on YouTube at the rate PigDave for more experts' insights, and grab your copy of Game Development Patterns with Godot 4. It's a must-have resource for anyone looking to level up their game development journey.
Stay tuned for more such stations from Pack Publishing as we continue to bring you to the best mind in the industry. Until next time, keep learning, keep creating, and never stop exploring. Thank you again, Henrique, and thank you all for watching. Take care and see you soon.